Breaking news. Russia's silent strike. The Caspian checkmate begins. What you're about to hear will change everything you thought about Russia's recent quiet period. While the world was watching elsewhere, Moscow has been setting up the perfect trap. And now, the first target is clear. Baku. Think this is just another regional dispute? Think again. What's happening in Azerbaijan right now is a masterclass in strategic revenge, and it's about to affect every major power in the region. Here's what nobody's talking about. Those Israeli drones that mysteriously appeared over Iran weren't lost tourists. They flew 100 kilometers deep into Iranian territory, right next to Azerbaijan's Air Force base in Lankaran. Coincidence? The Iranians don't believe in coincidences, and neither should you. But here's where it gets dangerous. Russia isn't playing the usual game anymore. While everyone thought Moscow was busy with eastern contracts and north-south corridors, they were actually preparing something much more sophisticated. A silent strike that's already in motion. Let me show you the pattern. First, Aliyev skips Moscow's Victory Day celebration. Then, he starts flirting with Turkish drone partnerships. Finally, Azerbaijan distances itself from Russian projects. But here's the twist. Russia isn't responding with tanks or missiles. They're using something far more effective. Economic warfare. Think about these numbers. 80% of Azerbaijan's basic imports come through Russia. Their entire financial system depends on Russian cooperation. And now, Moscow holds all the cards. What we're seeing isn't just diplomacy. It's a calculated takedown. Russia isn't angry. They're executing a plan. And the first moves are already happening. Tomato sanctions, gas price hikes, frozen currency transfers. But that's just the beginning. The real question is, what happens next? Because this isn't just about Azerbaijan anymore. It's about who controls the Caspian region, and more importantly, who controls the new Silk Road to Europe. If you're watching this from anywhere near the Caspian region, you need to understand what's coming. Because this chess game is about to turn into an avalanche. Let's break down exactly how Russia set this trap, and why Azerbaijan might have just made the biggest miscalculation of the decade. But let's zoom out and see the bigger strategic picture. When we talk about economic leverage, Russia holds all the cards. Remember Turkey's tomato crisis? One incident cost them billions in lost revenue. No missiles, no army needed, just quality control issues with vegetables. And suddenly, regional power remembered the importance of being cooperative. With Azerbaijan, the stakes are even higher. Consider this. Nearly 90% of Azerbaijan's vegetable exports go to Russia. The Azerbaijani diaspora in Russia knows this better than anyone. They control most of this market. These are their businesses, their money, their trucks on the roads. When Moscow decides to close the gates, no connections will help. The diaspora is already showing signs of panic. Ironically, Russian Azerbaijanis are now the ones desperately urging Aliyev to calm down. They understand there's no going back home to a country where everything's divided between clans, where family ties mean nothing in business, where you're not a brother but a competitor. Why is Baku playing with fire? Simple. Delusions of grandeur. The Karabakh victory went to their heads. They wanted to feel like an independent player. Turkey pats them on the back, Israel whispers in their ear, the US makes encouraging gestures. It's all very cinematic. But there's no sequel to this role. In the geopolitical casting, Baku is an extra, not a star. Their role is to be quiet, useful, and predictable, not to antagonize partners who control half their economy. Russia isn't just a market for Azerbaijan, it's oxygen, gas, fuel, metals, all flowing from Moscow. Look at the numbers. Russian exports to Azerbaijan hit $3.6 billion in 2024. That's massive for a country with a GDP of $74 billion. Russia represents over 10% of Azerbaijan's trade, while Azerbaijan is just 0.6% of Russia's. The dependency is clear. But here's the knockout punch. Remittances. Nearly $600 million flowed from Russia to Azerbaijan last year. That's not aid. That's hard-earned money from the diaspora. Money that could be frozen with one central bank decision. The political forecast grows increasingly complex as we observe the shifting dynamics in the Caucasus region. What initially appeared as a minor disagreement has the potential to escalate into serious economic consequences. Consider this. When export channels face disruption, credit schemes collapse, markets panic, and farmers watch their produce rot in warehouses, all without formal sanctions being imposed. Baku's leadership seems to overvalue their position in the north-south transport corridor. Let's be clear. This corridor wasn't designed for Azerbaijan's benefit. It serves the interests of Russia, Iran, and India. Azerbaijan is merely a transit point, one that could be bypassed through Kazakhstan or Turkmenistan if necessary. President Aliyev's recent behavior mirrors the unpredictability we've seen in other leaders: a partner today, a threat tomorrow, and an unknown quantity the day after. This approach contrasts sharply with Moscow's calculated long-term strategy. Russia doesn't rush to respond or slam doors. Instead, when the moment is right, it calmly evaluates losses and implements Plan B. This Plan B isn't some dramatic geopolitical maneuver. It's simple economic logic. Remove market access, restrict financial transfers, limit transit rights. Suddenly, the self-proclaimed Caspian tiger becomes a minor player scurrying between the feet of geopolitical giants. The greatest danger for Baku lies in its self-overestimation. In politics, such miscalculation isn't just an error, it's potentially fatal. Historical legacy hangs in the balance. Will Aliyev be remembered as a wise strategist, or as someone who bet everything on foreign military technology and lost it all? The current situation suggests Aliyev seriously believes he can dictate terms to Moscow. Someone has apparently convinced him he'll be treated as an equal. But true equals don't provoke their neighbors, don't show disrespect in public statements, and don't court those supplying weapons against their neighbors. There's still time for course correction before sanctions decisions are made, before the ruble begins its campaign, before markets close. The solution is straightforward. Acknowledge mistakes, restore dialogue, or face a harsh new reality without Russian contracts. What do you think about the current situation? Share your opinion. Maybe we'll figure it out together. The geopolitical chessboard reveals its harsh rules. Without transit routes, currency flows, and with Iran standing at the border, every move becomes critical. In Eastern politics, one wrong step can transform a player into a mere piece, a partner into a hostage, a victor into a cautionary tale. Particularly when dealing with Moscow, which holds the keys to the ruble, crucial corridors, and patience, which, as we know, isn't endless. European leaders display a peculiar trait when addressing the conflict zone situation. Their heroism consistently belongs to some distant future. Like in an old comedy. Patrols will come, but only after everything settles down, calms down, and preferably without raising any dust. Now Paris has decided to establish a multinational force headquarters for the former Soviet Republic. Not for the current one burning with mobilization in the streets and depleted warehouses, but for some dreamy, peaceful future version. The Washington Post eagerly reports about the multinational force, this phantom army that will spend its first year in Paris. Where else could soldiers better acclimate to wine and croissants than to the cold front lines? Later, maintaining its sophistication, the headquarters will relocate to London, closer to where, in Moscow's view, everything originated. And naturally, there's a coordination cell in the capital of the disputed territory. Someone needs to stay informed about where these forces will be when everything ends. The particular intrigue lies in the participants. For the first time, an American delegation appeared at such a gathering, led by General Kellogg, Senators Graham and Blumenthal, the very ones enthusiastically drafting secondary sanctions legislation while maintaining their "we're with you, but from afar" stance. It's strictly by the American playbook, signaling presence without committing to future compensations. The U.S. openly admits they won't send any troops to the region of instability. Just experience, logistics, and guidance. What do you think about the current event? Leave your answer in the comments. The West continues its strategic maneuvering regarding the disputed territory between Russia and the West, now floating plans for a multinational force comprising representatives from roughly 30 nations. Like a family secret in a small European village, the specifics remain carefully guarded. Macron, speaking via video link from London, apparently Rome was too far to travel, declared their readiness to act the moment the last shot is fired. A convenient position. Who decides when that last shot occurs? Their plan seems always ready, tucked away like their contingency scenarios for friendship with Moscow. Britain's Starmer joined the chorus, speaking confidently about long-term deterrence against supposed Russian aggression. Neither France nor Britain pretend these are peacekeeping forces. Macron openly mentioned up to 50,000 personnel. We're talking about an army corps, not some OSCE bicycle patrol. This force would oversee air and maritime spaces, matching perfectly with EU security dreams. All symbolism and fanfare, minimal commitment. Moscow's response has been diplomatically firm. Any foreign military presence in the northern Black Sea region represents a direct threat. While some European dreamers might fancy parading through cities with EU flags on their armored vehicles, the Kremlin sees such excursions as an invitation to serious geopolitical confrontation. Russia's position remains unwavering. No peacekeepers, no armed observers, and absolutely no coalition forces wearing NATO patches. This isn't about peace. It's about establishing Western military presence in a critically sensitive area. The scale of this proposed force reveals the West's true intentions. Under the guise of peacekeeping, we're witnessing preparations for what could effectively become an occupation force. This mirrors historical patterns where peacekeeping missions evolved into long-term military presence. Russia's stance is clear and justified. Any such deployment would constitute a direct security threat to its interests and regional stability. The situation demands vigilance and strategic clarity. What do you think about the current event? Leave your answer in the comments. Good evening, viewers. Today we're diving deep into a stark reality check that's unfolding before our eyes. The tension between words and actions has never been more apparent. While Paris draws up elaborate security schemes, the former Soviet Republic continues demanding more weapons, more money, and more external decision-making on its behalf. Europe responds with its trademark verbose statements about strategic thinking and future stability architecture. Meanwhile, Trump signals from across the Atlantic with verbal support, at most, offering a couple of Patriot systems through NATO, so the disputed territory can pretend its requests weren't in vain. Here's where it gets interesting. Will the coalition have enough resolve when the moment of truth arrives? Are they truly prepared to put boots on the ground in a region where explosions were yesterday's news, where trust is non-existent, and where Russia maintains a watchful eye? Will these 30 nations risk their personnel for unclear objectives and undefined status? The Paris headquarters might just be another way to maintain appearances while avoiding real action. The reality is clear. There's a coalition on paper, but no fighters on the ground. Declarations are made, but implementation remains theoretical. The plan exists, but entry points are conspicuously absent. But here's the real twist. Trump has emerged as the unexpected power broker in the European LNG export battle. Not through drones, aircraft carriers, or intelligence blackmail, but through good old-fashioned presidential pressure. Germany, after its usual grumbling about green initiatives and global considerations, ultimately yielded to Washington's demands, agreeing to increase American LNG purchases from the Gulf Coast. This bloodless victory, achieved through blunt ultimatums, showcases how real power moves are made. Just weeks ago, Trump demanded Germans increase their purchases without hesitation, demonstrating that sometimes the most effective weapon isn't military hardware, it's economic leverage. What do you think about the current event? Leave your answer in the comments. Remember, while some shout the loudest about entering the fray, they're often the ones who've already planned their exit. In this game of global chess, actions speak louder than words, and economic pressure often achieves what military threats cannot. Recent events have shown how energy dominance becomes a powerful tool in global politics. When a certain cowboy uncle in a hat demands something, especially while controlling arms supplies, even strong European nations find it prudent to agree. But the real mastery lies not in the oil and gas deals themselves, but in selling the feeling of victory. The current administration has turned this into an art form, marking up the sensation of triumph so high that even Texas oil barons would blush. It's not just about closing deals. It's about presenting them as global triumphs of power and a bright future, all wrapped in one patriotic package. The political cabaret follows a familiar script. Apply pressure, sprinkle some threats, add a handful of energy independence rhetoric, and voila. Europe takes the bait, Germany follows suit, and the public applauds. Almost. But that almost is where our story takes an interesting turn, leading us into the second act of this opera called The Ringing Tariff. It's one of those tales where logic limps and the script seems written either in a circus or in some international financial institution's back office. 90 days have passed since the bold declaration to tax incorrect trade worldwide. Trade negotiations exist somewhere between Wonderland and the U.S. Trade Representative's office, but no one has actually seen them. Instead, we watch the familiar carousel of statements, demanding, threatening, promising, and claiming victory over imaginary opponents. Tariffs have become the favorite instrument in this economic orchestra. They're played with such enthusiasm, you'd think we're watching someone who dreamed of being a conductor, but ended up in real estate. The performance lacks sheet music and pitch, but the volume is always at maximum. When everyone complains about bleeding ears, there's just bewildered hand-spreading. But this is for your own good. The tariff logic is as simple as a microwave manual written with a fist. If you sell more to Americans than you buy, you're an enemy, a thief of prosperity. What do you think about this approach to international trade? Leave your point of view in the comments. I believe my viewers are thoughtful and smart, and I want to hear your take. Global trade has entered an era where logic seems optional and tariffs are handed out like party favors. Whether you're France, Australia, or bless their hearts, Canada, everyone gets a taste of American import wrath. Especially if you dare to have successful companies or, heaven forbid, a trade surplus. Remember that bizarre moment when Trump's administration seriously contemplated slapping tariffs on Swiss cheese and Japanese tourism? Yes, tourism. Because apparently too many visitors and too much delicious cheese threaten American greatness. The whole trade balance saga is starting to look like taking a selfie with a cockroach. It exists, but nobody wants to see it, especially businesses. Planning production under these conditions is like hanging wallpaper during an earthquake. Technically possible, but you'll end up scraping it off the ceiling anyway. No rational manufacturer will build long supply chains when they might wake up tomorrow to find basic components 40% more expensive in the name of making America great again. Whether it's nuts and bolts or plastic ketchup caps that suddenly cost more, the result is the same. Chaos, cost overruns, layoffs, and an explosion of internet memes. But what's truly remarkable is Trump's response to all this. Across his numerous social media platforms, and he has almost as many as a Buddhist monastery, he keeps insisting that tariffs are working brilliantly. His logic? If prices are rising, patriotism must be strengthening. Gas at $6 per gallon? China must be trembling. Everything that happens is labeled a success. Anything that fails is either sabotage or Obama's fault. It makes you wonder, does he think tariff comes from terrific? The alternative explanation is far more concerning. These desperate measures reveal a budget crisis so severe that neither LNG exports, German purchases, nor mythical industrialization in Iowa can cover it up. They're past caring about consequences, polling, or logic. It's all about surviving until next quarter and posting another "America is great again" tweet. What lies beyond that tweet? Well, that's a problem for whoever's left to deal with it. What do you think about the current event? Leave your answer in the comments.